I fucking hate this game. What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to talk about Resident Evil 6. Oh joy, Resident Evil 6. So before I get started with this video, if you enjoy watching me play through and reviewing and ranking video game franchises, or if you're just a fan of video games in general, then it would mean a great deal to me if you could head on over to my channel, Tresinator, click that subscribe button, and if you enjoyed this video, I would also appreciate if you could give me a big thumbs up. Without further ado, let's get started. So we've made it here. We've made it to Resident Evil 6, the game that everyone says is the worst in the franchise. And is it the worst in the franchise? Well, we'll see. As always, I'll go over some of the production, and then we'll talk about the plot, what I thought about the plot, what I thought about the gameplay, and then I will rank it alongside the other Resident Evil games. So, for those following along at home, my current ranking of the Resident Evil series is as follows. At number 1, Resident Evil 4. At number 2, Resident Evil 2 Remake. At number 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica X. At number 4, Resident Evil 3 Remake. At number 5, Resident Evil HD Remaster. At number 6, Resident Evil Revelations 2. At number 7, Resident Evil 0. At number 8, Resident Evil 5. And at number 9, Resident Evil Revelations. So this is the 10th game that I am playing in the series. There are 2 more after this. There's Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, and I'm currently in the process of playing Resident Evil 7. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Today we're going to talk about Resident Evil 6. And Resident Evil 6 was released on October 12th, 2012 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. It was directed by Ilekaro Sasaki and written by Sotaro Suga. Now, as I have been playing most of the series, I played this also on my Nintendo Switch. This is actually the last game that I will be playing on the Switch, as I will be playing 7 and 8 on the PC. It was kind of a mess. And a lot happened. Before I get into my thoughts on the story and my thoughts on the gameplay, let's go over the plot to catch us up to speed with where we're at in the Resident Evil franchise. On 24 December 2012, Jake Muller, son of late bioterrorist Albert Wesker, flees local authorities during a bioterrorist attack in Edonia. He partners with Division of Security Operations agent and Raccoon City survivor Sherry Birkin. He learns that she is to extract him from the country to create a vaccine for the new C-virus. However, they are hunted by Ustanak, a hulking bioweapon. Meanwhile, a Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance (BSAA) strike team led by Chris Redfield and Piers Nevins is deployed to combat in the infected local populace. They are attacked by the leader of Neo Umbrella, who refers to herself as Ada Wong. She kills most of the BSAA members using a device that injects them with the C-virus, turning them into monsters, except Chris and Piers. Meanwhile, Sherry and Jake's extraction by the BSAA is sabotaged, forcing them to crash into the mountains. They are captured by quote-unquote Ada for 6 months. On 29 June 2013, US President Adam Benford attempts to publicly reveal the truth behind the 1998 Raccoon City incident and the government's dealings with Umbrella to end further bioterrorist activity. However, the venue in the American town of Tall Oaks is hit by another attack, infecting the president. The sole survivors, DSO agent and Raccoon City survivor Leon S. Kennedy, and United States Secret Service agent Helena Harper, are forced to kill the president. The pair encounter the real Ada Wong, and Leon learns that National Security Advisor Derek Simmons is affiliated with Neo Umbrella and was responsible for the attack. Leon and Helena pursue Simmons into Lanxiang, China, while faking their deaths. Meanwhile, Jake and Sherry escape captivity in Lanxiang. Chris returns to his duty in the BSAA with Piers and a new team, arriving in besieged Lanxiang. Chris recovers from his amnesia and seeks revenge against Ada, resulting in casualties for his squad. Chris and Piers confront Ada until Leon intervenes. After being informed by Leon, Chris and Piers pursue the imposter Ada to an aircraft carrier. The imposter Ada was a scientist named Carla Radams, who was forced to transform into Ada by Simmons. The real Ada was aiding Leon and Sherry while destroying the Neo Umbrella lab in Lanxiang. Although presumed dead after being shot by one of Simmons' soldiers, Carla attempts a final attack against Ada, after having injected herself with a powerful dose of the C-virus, but is killed. Leon, Helena, Sherry, and Jake confront Simmons over his involvement with the outbreaks, while Sherry covertly hands Jake's medical data to Leon in case of their captivity. Leon and Helena corner Simmons, who has been infected by a Javo, where he confesses to having killed the president to maintain national security. The two see off a mutated Simmons while Sherry and Jake are captured again. Attempting to leave the city, Leon and Helena are warned by Chris that a missile has been launched, but they are too late to stop it. Leon discloses Jake's real identity to Chris and has him rescue Jake and Sherry in a remote oil platform. With Ada's assistance, Leon and Helena kill Simmons. On the oil platform, Chris and Pierce head underground, freeing Jake and Sherry from captivity before preventing a large-scale attack by a gigantic bioweapon, House. Heavily wounded and in a desperate attempt to save Chris, Pierce injects himself with the C-Virus to help turn the tide of the battle. He defeats House before evacuating. Aware that the mutation will worsen, Pierce sacrifices himself by pushing Chris into an escape pod, using his abilities to destroy the base. Meanwhile, Jake and Sherry escape the facility and kill Ustanak as they ride a rocket-powered lift to the surface. Ada destroys the lab where her clone was developed before accepting a new assignment. Leon and Helena are cleared for duty. Chris remains with the BSA in command of a new squad, overcoming his guilt. Sherry continues her duty as a DSO agent, and Jake starts a new life fighting BOWs in an underdeveloped country with his identity covered up by the BSAA. So yeah, there you have the story for Resident Evil 6, and honestly, I feel like a lot was probably left out. This campaign, I mean, there were 4 campaigns, so there's 4 stories in this game. It took me like between 20 to 30 hours to beat. It was definitely the longest Resident Evil that I've played thus far for all the wrong reasons. So the way I explain this story to most people is that it's kind of like if Michael Bay were to direct a Resident Evil game, this is the story that you get. There's very little horror elements in these stories. It's just over the top action movie, which I guess was kind of popular at the time. And I know when this came out in 2012, games were trying to kind of basically almost be like an action movie. And that's what they were trying to go for in this game, I feel like. And it doesn't work for me. It really is kind of an outlier in the whole series. It feels so far and away extremely different than any other Resident Evil game that I have played so far. They tried to pack so much story in here. So you have 4 different campaigns going on all at the same time, and they all kind of like intertwine with each other, and it's confusing as to which happens first. Now, once you beat one of the campaigns, they give you all of the cinematics in a extras menu, and they actually give you a timeline to see when everything starts, when everything ends, when everything intersects. And I actually really like that about this, because you kind of need it, because otherwise you have no idea. I mean, you can kind of piece things together, but there's just so much going on that when you're playing one campaign, you're not familiar with the other campaigns yet. So as you play through, then you're kind of like, oh, and the twists don't really hit the way that they should, because you're not familiar with the other campaigns. And like the whole world is involved because the president is killed, and then there's like huge outbreaks in giant cities, this time in Lanxiang, China. There's an outbreak in the town that the president was going to give his speech in, and it's just a mess. It's a huge mess of a story. It's just extremely overly dramatic, like airplanes crashing and exploding, and it's a huge mess. That's all I can really say about it. Now, the voice acting in the game is actually very good, and they spent some money on this too, because we see Troy Baker, who's playing Jake Muller. We see Laura Bailey, who's playing Helena Harper. I'm assuming they did this to try and give these newer characters some weight and kind of give them some popularity. As far as I know, we haven't heard anything from them since this game, and because the game was received so poorly, I doubt that Capcom's going to bring these characters back, but who knows, maybe in like a side, maybe like a Revelations type game, we can see them come back. I don't think we're gonna really see Jake or Helena in a main series from here on out, but I could be wrong. So big, long, confusing, overly dramatic story. Didn't like it. Easily the worst story in the Resident Evil franchise, or at least my least favorite story in the Resident Evil franchise. So now let's talk about gameplay. This game tries so hard to do so much, and it achieves very little. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to be bold. They were trying to make it this game that has like never been done before, where they kind of focused on a bunch of different aspects of the game, a bunch of different types of gameplay. Every campaign, every character plays differently. They have a different skill set, but it's just too much. Not really any of them. I think Ada was probably one of the best campaigns, and then followed by Leon. Chris and Jake's campaign weren't very good in my opinion. And I mean, Ada and Leon's campaigns weren't very good either. They tried to make it this such a big game with so many different avenues to play that it takes away from all of the avenues to play, if that makes sense. It's like they didn't focus on a single sole purpose of gameplay, so all of the gameplay suffers. That's at least how I felt about the gameplay in the game. The mechanics were clunky. The dodging was clunky. Like, you have to be aiming to dodge. The duck and cover was clunky, because when you get behind something, you have to like actually push yourself to go out, as opposed to a lot of duck and cover games where it's just when you hit the aim button, you kind of step out. Felt like it needed a lot of work and tweaking in the gameplay area, and it didn't really work where they wanted it to work. I understand what they were going for, and on paper this looks great and it sounds like a fantastic game, and the whole game is multiplayer. Like, at any time, if you turn multiplayer on, someone can jump into the game and play alongside you. And at some points while I was playing on my Nintendo Switch, some people did jump on Resident Evil 6 on the Switch, which was surprising to me, but it did happen, and it did make the game more fun to co-op through that. But it's just not Resident Evil, and it just felt weird, and it didn't feel like it was a great game. It felt just extremely mediocre. We get to a ton of on-rails missions, which I know Resident Evil has done in the past, but these were just different. The helicopter fighting and helicopter missions weren't that bad. I guess that was probably the best of like these on-rails type missions, but the whole game just felt extremely clunky. And everyone's pause menu is different. It's very overwhelming with the different things that you can do. There's no horror in this game at all. It's just a giant action game. There's really no puzzles. One of the best things about the Resident Evil games is that you can pick up different notes and like kind of uncover the story through these notes that you're finding throughout the whole map. And I believe those existed as extras in the extra menu. And at that point, after I beat the campaign, I don't care to go back and read them really. And it was just extremely long too. I mean, it took me so long to beat, and I was so tired of it, like at a quarter of the way through the game. Overall, this game just tried to do too much. That's what I think, at least. And the end result of that is just a giant mess of a game. You have a mess of a story, you have a mess of a game. And I think Capcom kind of learned their lesson from this, because it's easily one of the worst games in the franchise. So with that being said, where am I going to rank Resident Evil 6? I mean, if we're going to start from the bottom, let's take a look at Resident Evil Revelations. So Revelations got put at the bottom because it was kind of basic, but it was still fun and it was enjoyable. Whereas this is the complete opposite of basic. They tried to put so much in this game and none of it works. And not a lot of it is really that enjoyable. So I really think that this is going to have to go all the way down on the bottom of my list. So your new rankings for the Resident Evil franchise are as follows. Number 1, Resident Evil 4. Number 2, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Number 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica. Number 4, Resident Evil 3 Remake. Number 5, Resident Evil HD Remaster. Number 6, Resident Evil Revelations 2. Number 7, Resident Evil 0. Number 8, Resident Evil 5. Number 9, Resident Evil Revelations. And number 10, Resident Evil 6. So 10 games in, we've got 2 more to go. That's where we're at with our rankings. Next up, I will be playing Resident Evil 7, and it's the first time that I am playing Resident Evil 7. And I'm excited for first-person Resident Evil because I've never experienced this before, and I know it's a completely different direction from what I had just played. So I think we need a refresher after that game. So if you've played Resident Evil 6, please let me know in the comments below where you think Resident Evil 6 should go. What is your review on it? Did I score it too low? Do you think it should go at the bottom? Let me know. And please join me next time as I review Resident Evil 7. Again, if you like watching me play through entire video game franchises and ranking them along the way, then head on over to my channel, Trezinator. Please subscribe, click that bell to get notifications every time I post a new video. And if you liked this video, it would mean a lot to me if you gave it a big thumbs up. With that being said, I hope to see you guys on my next review. Thanks for watching.